This week on ICN, the stories you should have heard but didn't. Congress puts your money where their wallet is. I see dead people. Pharmaceutical company Wyeth ghostwriting in medical journals. Nobel Prize Board investigated for criminal corruption. Another story in the American press about government preparation for civil unrest. Those stories next on Informed Citizen News. Hello, and welcome to Informed Citizen News, December 28, 2008. Our lead story is one that makes you shake your head as an American. Congress just gave itself a raise. They've been doing such a good job and working so hard that they feel they deserve a raise. This at a time when more and more Americans are losing their jobs and the economy is in a downward spiral. As part of the bailouts, they've required limitations on CEO pay for companies feeding at the taxpayer trough. They should scrutinize their own performance a little closer. The average congressman and senator has spent over 9 years in office, putting a majority of them in the driver's seat of this crashing economy. Not to mention the nearly 90% disapproval rating by the public. Congress voted in an automatic pay raise years ago. This is so they would have to actually vote not to give themselves a raise. Funny thing, the vote to decline the pay raise, it never comes up. We're left to conclude that the congressional response to being confronted about the pay raise would likely be qui mangeons de la brioche, which is French for let them eat cake. The New York Times reported the pharmaceutical company Wyeth hired ghostwriters to produce favorable articles about Wyeth's drugs. Wyeth paid a professional firm to write these articles and have them submitted to medical journals from so-called independent authors. One of the articles in question was published even after a study found that their hormone replacement drug, Prempro, raised the risk of breast cancer. The New York Times report details several instances of possible fraud where Wyeth would draft an article and have an independent writer submit it to a medical journal and claim it as their own. Any changes made by the writer would have to get final approval from Wyeth. Clowns to the left of us, jokers to the right. Here we are, stuck in the middle with you. The Nobel Prize Board has lost some of its lofty status in recent years and has taken another blow this past week. Swedish officials are starting a criminal corruption investigation that will focus on bribes, conflict of interests with the Nobel Prize Board. It appears that the Nobel Prize Board members have been receiving free trips and sitting on the boards of companies under consideration for awards. One conflict of interest under investigation surrounds the company AstraZeneca, which holds patents on and collects royalties for both HPV vaccines currently available, Gardasil in the US and Cervarix in Europe, and stands to benefit financially from the 2008 Nobel Prize. The Swedish state prosecutor has ordered a full criminal investigation. The Nobel Prize, it's not what it used to be. A new report by the U.S. Army War College talks about the possibility of Pentagon resources and troops being used should the economic crisis lead to civil unrest, such as protests against businesses and government or runs on beleaguered banks. The study says economic collapse, terrorism, and loss of legal order are among possible domestic shocks that might require military action within the U.S. The report, which appeared in the Phoenix Business Journal, also quoted Arizona state and local police officials as saying, "Broad plans are in place to deal with any social unrest, including trouble resulting from economic distress." If the government had done half as much planning in preventing the economic collapse, then we wouldn't have need for civil unrest preparedness. The Democrats and Republicans in power have an approval rating of about 10%. So when we hear a report about people taking on the establishment, we have to bring it to you. Earlier this month, the Los Angeles County Republican Party was taken over by what is best described as a coalition of outsiders. By taking initiative and using the existing rules of procedure, a group of upstarts were able to replace all 7 of the existing Republican board members. This group was categorized as a mix of Ron Paul and third-party supporters who were fed up with the Republican establishment. Self-proclaimed true conservatives stated that the entrenched Republican leaders got the U.S. into unnecessary war and spent us into oblivion. It took organization and determination, but they did it, and by doing so proved it can be done. People taking back the country, one community at a time. Ever feel like someone is watching you while you're walking or driving down the street? Well, someone is watching you. The government transportation agencies. Here's a holiday story that literally sticks a finger in the eye of Big Brother. A group of freedom-loving Santas disabled traffic cameras in Arizona with holiday ornaments. The Santas ended their operation with the following message: "Ho, ho, ho, death to the surveillance state. Free movement for all people. Only Santa knows who is naughty and nice. Lumps of coal to all of those who make it their business to watch and control." Next time you're driving or walking down the street, take a look up at the streetlights to see the cameras. As the great poet-philosopher Sting said, "Every step you take, every breath you make, they'll be watching you." Thank you for joining ICN this week. Americans need to be informed, so please send our link to your family and friends. From all of us at Informed Citizen News, Happy New Year!